If your life feels like a battlefield, it's because it is, but not for the reason you think. They will never tell you this. Not in sermons, not in books, not in prayers written for the masses. Because this is not a message for the many, this is for the marked. The ones the enemy recognized before you even knew how to kneel. The ones who were chosen before they were broken, the ones who carry fire in their bones and wonder why they keep getting burned. And if you're hearing this now, it's because your soul has already been in war for far longer than your mind remembers. You ask why the attacks don't stop, why your sleep feels invaded, why people betray you without cause, why heaviness walks into rooms before you do. It is not random, it is not weakness, it is not punishment, it is permission. Because the devil doesn't waste his weapons on the lukewarm. He doesn't torment what's already his. He hunts what threatens his grip. And you, child of divine fire, threaten everything he has tried to build. The devil doesn't come after you because you're cursed. He comes because you're consecrated. Every lie whispered against you, every delay, every door slammed, every betrayal wrapped in fake friendship, it's all been tactical. Hell knows who you are, even if you still don't. And now heaven needs you to know. Before we go further, I want you to pause and breathe deeply. Then comment below these words. I know who I am, and I know why I'm targeted, not for me, for you. Because the moment you name the war, the enemy starts losing it. This is not a message of comfort, it is a revelation of cause. Let me show you what they never told you. From the moment light touched your life, darkness began to stalk you. Every child born with divine assignment carries a scent hell can't ignore. It's not seen with the eyes, it's sensed in the spirit. Some call it bad luck. Others say they attract chaos. But I tell you this, the anointed are attacked, not because they're weak, but because they're weaponized. And most of them have no idea. You were never meant to blend in. That's why rejection marked too early. You were never called to chase approval. That's why they never gave it. Every loneliness, every delay, every unanswered prayer wasn't silence, it was selection. Because what God sets apart, He also hides, not to punish, but to prepare, to protect, to preserve the parts of you that hell fears the most. But here's what hurts the most. Spiritual warfare rarely feels spiritual. It feels like confusion. It feels like heartbreak, it feels like exhaustion. Like, sometimes it feels like you're going crazy. And that's the devil's favorite trick, to make you believe you're fighting your own shadow, when in reality you're carrying the light that's exposing his. And now, the cycle is breaking. Because truth is light, and light always burns. There's something I must tell you now, something only those with scars will understand. The devil attacks the area of your future function. If you were born to heal, he sends sickness. If you were born to free others, he sends addictions. If you were born to speak truth, he sends silence, censorship, or shame. The devil doesn't fear where you are. He fears where you're headed. That's why he started early. That's why he used people you trusted. That's why it hurts so much. Because if he couldn't destroy you outright, he'd at least try to distract you, delay you, drown you in questions. But hear me now, you are not behind, you are being built, and every delay was permission for divine refinement. Stop comparing timelines, yours is holy. If this is reaching into the pit of your soul and naming the ache, don't let it pass by. Share this now. Someone you know is drowning in warfare without words. Be the voice that reaches them. Listen to me closely. Your sensitivity is not weakness, it's discernment. Your isolation isn't failure, it's incubation. Your tears, they're oil, sacred oil. And what you're calling spiritual attack is often spiritual awakening being fought in reverse. What you think is too hard may be the very evidence you're carrying something too holy for the enemy to ignore. Now hear this and let it sink in. If you were ordinary, your battles would be too. But the fact that your storm has a name, has a rhythm, has a relentless pattern, That is proof that something in you is echoing eternity. You didn't survive all that to go back to being silent. The reason you've been targeted is because you're not replaceable. And before the end of this video, I will tell you the final test that every chosen must face before their mantle is unlocked. You may not like it, but you need to hear it, because it is the threshold between torment and purpose. Let me keep whispering what no one dared to tell you. You see, the enemy didn't just study your weakness. He studied your timeline. He doesn't attack where you are now. He attacks where you're meant to stand. He saw the altar before you ever knelt. He saw the oil before you ever felt anointing. He saw the chains you were called to break, the captives you were born to free, the revival you were meant to trigger. And that is what he fears. So instead of waiting, he struck early. He attacked your childhood. He confused your identity. He poisoned your relationships. He whispered lies through people who were supposed to protect you. And he hoped that if he hit hard enough, long enough, you would never remember who you are. But here you are, still listening, still breathing, still reaching, and that terrifies hell, because a child of God who doesn't yet know their power is a target. But a child of God who starts remembering it, that's a threat. Let me whisper something you've always felt but never fully understood. The moments you felt most abandoned were actually moments of activation. You didn't recognize it then, because it didn't feel like heaven, it felt like hell. But hidden inside those breakdowns were holy blueprints, buried in pain, soaked in silence, encoded in delay. And now that you're beginning to see, the enemy is starting to scramble. He's running out of lies. He's running out of rooms to hide in, because every tear you cried was water on seeds you didn't even know you were planting. And those seeds are waking up. Yes, even now, you've wondered, why do I feel so much? It's not emotional instability, it's spiritual sensitivity. You were never meant to be numb. That weight you carry in your chest when someone walks in a room, that pressure behind your eyes when truth is spoken, that tightening in your gut when someone's pretending, that's not coincidence, that's discernment. Heaven wired you for holy perception. And when you suppress it, it turns into anxiety, exhaustion, burnout. Not because you're broken, because you're misaligned. You've been trained to function like a common soul, when your design was always sacred, and when a sacred thing forgets it's sacred, it breaks. So let me remind you, you are not a mistake. You are not too late. You are not too much. You are not cursed. You are not forgotten. And you are not fighting alone. The devil knew your name before you did. But more importantly, so did God. And what God names, He never abandons. Now pause, yes, right now, and breathe again. Share this with someone whose warfare feels invisible. Whisper to them what I'm whispering to you now. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. Because when you say it out loud, heaven marks it. It becomes not just knowledge but a sword. Do you feel it? The shift, the part of you that was asleep, starting to wake up. Then listen carefully. There is a reason you are the one in your family who breaks cycles. Why you've always been the black sheep. Why you never fit their patterns. Why your joy bothered them. Why your silence unnerved them. Why your questions were too loud for the ones used to pretending. You were called to disrupt the darkness that became normal to them. That is not pride. That is not rebellion. That is assignment. And yes, it's heavy. But you were built for this. You are not fragile, you are not frail, you are forged, and fire only proves it. I want you to remember something. Even if the rest of the world forgets, being chosen is lonely, but it is never empty. Heaven fills what earth rejects. Every room you were pushed out of was clearing space for rooms you're being called into. Every relationship that fell apart was mercy in disguise. Some people couldn't stay, not because they were evil, but because they couldn't breathe at your altitude. You will not die in transition. Now listen with your spirit, not just your ears. The devil doesn't just want to distract you, he wants to dilute you. If he can't make you turn away from God, he'll settle for you doubting your assignment. He'll use religion to shame you. He'll use isolation to silence you. He'll use busyness to bury you in good things. So you never have time to become the dangerous thing you were meant to be, but not anymore. This is the season where you must choose clarity over comfort, where you stop dimming your light to fit in, where you stop apologizing for your anointing, where you stop making peace with shadows just to feel safe, because your warfare isn't about what's wrong with you, it's about what's right with you. And the moment you embrace that, the war begins to shift to, you were born for spiritual war, but you were also born to win it. And before this video ends, I will reveal to you a prophetic warning. There's one thing the key enemy always plants in the final stage of your breakthrough battle, and if you don't recognize it, you will surrender the victory inches before it's yours. I will tell you what that trap is, and how to see it before it sees you. But for now, speak this out loud, like armor being formed from breath. I am not too late, I am not disqualified, I am dangerous to the darkness, and I will not bow. Now go. Comment below what part of this broke something inside you or lit something up. Not for engagement, but for alignment. Your confession is your activation. And someone else will read your words and remember their own, because the message wasn't for everyone, but it was for you. You've been fighting invisible battles for so long you started to think it was just life, just bad luck, just your cross to carry. But let me tell you something that may offend what religion taught you. Not every battle is a cross. Some are chains. And the devil hopes you don't know the difference, because as long as you call chains God's will, you'll never try to break them. Some of what you've accepted, heaven never assigned. There are lies wrapped in scripture, condemnation disguised as conviction, guilt handed to you like communion. And it numbed your hunger, it tamed your fire, but something in you refused to die. That little flicker of holy rebellion, that part of you that said, there has to be more than this. That wasn't pride, that was prophecy. Because when heaven deposits purpose inside someone, it doesn't die just because the church misdiagnosed it. No one saw your private tears. No one heard your silent prayers. No one laid hands on you when your soul was unraveling at 3 a.m. But I did. I was there, watching, interceding, whispering from the shadows of your spirit. Don't give up, not now, not yet. And even when you cursed the heavens, even when you stopped believing, even when you wanted to vanish, your assignment didn't, because what's holy in you cannot be killed. Only covered, only delayed, only denied by your agreement. But you're breaking that agreement now. Say this: I break every lie I called truth. I cancel every chain I called holy. I say yes to what heaven always saw in me. You're not just being reminded, you're being reawakened. And now that your soul is listening, I need to tell you the pattern of hell. Because spiritual warfare is never random, it's calculated, precise, predictable to those who have eyes to see. It always starts with fatigue, not physical, but spiritual. You feel tired, even after rest. You feel drained. Even when life is fine, it's a weight that has no name, a numbness that grows louder than your joy. And when you ignore it, it turns into confusion. Confusion that makes you doubt what God already told you. That makes you question whether you ever heard Him at all. And when confusion lingers, isolation creeps in. You stop reaching out, you stop answering calls. You pull away, not because you want to be alone, but because you're trying to protect what's left. This is when the devil strikes, not with horns, not with flames, but with familiarity. He brings back what you thought you healed from, the temptation you thought you conquered, the relationship you swore you'd outgrown. He reintroduces the very thing you buried, but with new makeup, new language, new timing, and he whispers, "See, nothing really changed. You're still weak, you're still unworthy, you're still not ready." And if you don't recognize the cycle, you'll step back into the prison, with your hands wide open. But not this time, not after all you've survived, not after all the nights you didn't quit, not after all the tears that watered the soil of your becoming. This time, you're awake. And now hear me. The reason your warfare intensified recently isn't because something went wrong. it's because something finally went right. The devil always strikes hardest when you're closest to the threshold. Not because you're weak, but because what's on the other side is dangerous, is, to him. So I need you to stop saying, "Why me?" and start declaring, "It's because of me." Because something's about to be born out of you that hell cannot stop. But it can distract. It can seduce. It can delay. Unless you stay rooted, comment below. This time I'm not stepping back, I'm stepping through. Say it. Let your words mark the territory. Let your voice become the alarm clock to the parts of you that fell asleep under attack. You are more than a survivor, you are a key. And the moment you realize that, chains start breaking, not just for you, but for everyone attached to your obedience. Let me show you something sacred. Have you noticed how your attacks often happen right after you say yes to something holy? How sickness shows up after you commit to prayer, how drama explodes when you start fasting, how people turn on you after you say yes to purity. That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. The devil doesn't care about Christians who play it safe. He only fears the ones who say yes and actually mean it. You meant it, that's why he fought back. But let me give you the prophecy now, not from books, not from rituals, but from fire. Everything the enemy used to delay you, God will use to define you. The broken relationships, they taught you discernment. The delays, they stretched your endurance. The silence, it trained your ears to hear whispers. The rejection, it purified your motives. Nothing was wasted, not even your worst chapters. Heaven has been building your voice in the shadows, and now it's time to use it. But before we move on, I must tell you something important. In every chosen one's journey, there is a moment, a sacred test, that looks nothing like a test. It doesn't come with warning. It doesn't come with thunder. It comes quietly, in comfort, in opportunities, in moments that look like reward, but are actually counterfeit. The closer you get to your real breakthrough, the more the enemy sends replicas. That's what I'll show you next. What it looks like, how to discern it, how to resist what seems good, but isn't God, because what's waiting for you is too holy to miss. Now listen with everything inside you, because what I'm about to reveal, most people never see until it's too late. The devil does not need to destroy you to stop you. He only needs to offer you something that looks holy but keeps you stuck. He knows that the chosen are not easily tempted by obvious sin, so instead, he wraps distractions in the robes of destiny. He covers delays with spiritual-sounding excuses. He paints counterfeits in colors so close to calling that if your spirit is tired, you won't see the difference. This is the most dangerous part of your journey, not the storm, but the silence after it, when the enemy doesn't show up to scare you but to soothe you, when he no longer needs to push you off course, because he's offered you a comfortable, painless version of your assignment, a version that keeps your name clean, that avoids confrontation, that makes people like you, that gives you partial blessing with no burden, power with no purity, movement with no meaning, and if you accept it, you forfeit the mantle you were born to carry. That's what he wants. Not to burn your calling to the ground, but to leave you holding a shadow of it. A safe, small, sanitized version of the thing heaven designed you to unleash like fire. You feel it, don't you? That pull, that offer, that almost right opportunity, that person who says everything perfectly, but something in you stays unsettled. That ministry that invites you in, but only if you silence your real voice. That job that pays well, but kills your spirit. That path that feels easier but emptier. Let me say this clearly. Satan's greatest weapon against the chosen is not sin, it's imitation. And the only way to pass this part of your journey is to listen for the quiet grief inside you when you're about to settle. You know what I'm talking about. That small ache in your spirit. That whisper that says this isn't it. Even when everyone says it is, even when it looks right on paper, even when it makes logical sense, because purpose doesn't always feel peaceful. And peace isn't always passive. Sometimes peace is war in disguise. And when heaven is calling you to carry something heavy, the counterfeit will always offer ease first. That's how he gets the gifted, not with fear but with fatigue. But you're not going to fall for it. Not this time. Not after everything. Not after the fire. Not after the tears. Not after the chains you've already broken. You didn't survive hell just to end up in a spiritual waiting room wearing a fake crown. You were called for the dangerous path, the real one, the one that costs something, the one that strips you of your ego, that burns up your image, that cuts off approval from people you thought you needed, that makes you bleed before you bless, that requires death before resurrection. And that's why it's holy, because what doesn't kill your flesh can't awaken your spirit. So now I want you to pause again. Breathe, not just with your lungs, but with your soul. And look, not at your life, but at what's been offered to your altar lately. A relationship that feels almost right, but something in you still winces. A new door opened, but only if you shut your voice. A platform extended, but only if you leave your fire at the door. You see it now, don't you? Don't. The enemy doesn't just knock, he imitates holy. And if you don't name the fake, you'll start bowing to it. What doors opened? But only if you close the real parts of your spirit. What paths appeared? But something in you just couldn't say yes. Comment below, I choose the fire, I reject the fake, because this declaration isn't for clicks, it's for clarity. When you name the counterfeit, the anointing flows freely again. When you reject the easy way, the angels start moving again. When you choose obedience over optics, power returns to your voice. Let me give you a picture, a vision. I see someone standing at a crossroads. To the left, comfort, applause, image, protection, crowd. To the right, wilderness, silence, pruning, realness, anointing. One feels good to the flesh. One feels unbearable to the ego. But only one has heaven's oil waiting at the end. You know which way to go. Because this message was never for the masses. It was for you. For the one who's been walking wounded but still walking. For the one who's been wrestling in prayer but still shows up. For the one who doesn't just want breakthrough, but wants truth. At any cost. You want it raw, and heaven hears that. So I will give it to you raw. Your next breakthrough is not waiting on God. It's waiting on your decision. Heaven already said yes. But your yes has been hesitant, split, partial, waiting for permission. But God will not bless a lie about your calling. He will not anoint a version of you that isn't real. He is not waiting for your perfection. He is waiting for your permission to go all in, to burn the backup plans, to stop entertaining the good enough route, to stop feeding your fear, and to step fully into the fire that you already feel breathing on your neck, because there is glory there. But more than that, there is you there, the real you, the dangerous you, the one that darkness recognized before you could even form a sentence. And now it's time to become that. But before we move on, let me prepare you. When you choose the real path, you will lose things. People, positions, platforms, comforts, even parts of yourself. And it will feel like death. But it's not death. It's deliverance. Because some things cannot go where you're going, not because they're bad, but because they're too small, and neither is your soul. So say this out loud, even if it trembles. I release what was never meant for me. I accept the wilderness if it means I'll be free, because what you release now makes space for what you were born to carry. And in the next part of this message, I will show you what that is. The moment it begins. The final stripping before the mantle folds. The silence that breaks open the sky. And the voice you've been waiting for. Not mine. His. Are you ready now? Not just with your ears, but with your soul. Because the next part is not revelation, it is release. And what I'm about to show you will not come with applause. It will come with stillness. Because the holiest moments of transformation do not arrive in noise. They arrive in silence so thick it presses on your chest like a hand from heaven. And if you stay in that silence long enough, you will hear something few ever do. The voice behind the warfare, yes. That voice. The one you've wondered about in the dark. The one that felt absent when you needed it most. The one you prayed for when you were bleeding in places no one saw. It was never gone. It was never ignoring you. It was waiting for you to be still enough to recognize its sound not as thunder, but as whisper, because heaven doesn't shout to compete with your distractions. It whispers to see who is still listening. And now that you've rejected the counterfeit, now that you've burned the fake maps, now that you've walked into the wilderness with nothing but your bare yes, that voice comes back, but not to comfort, to commission, because this is the moment every chosen soul must face. When heaven says go, but gives you no details. When the instructions are only one step long, when the map is blank, but the presence is thick. When obedience feels like insanity, because no one else understands it. Not your friends, not your church, not even your own logic, but still, something in you knows. You've arrived at the threshold, the spiritual gate between being called and being carried. And here's what no one tells you. The closer you get to the promise, the less you will see. Because heaven hides the final steps. Not to test your faith, but to secure it. Because if you saw what was waiting on the other side, your flesh would try to control it, your pride would try to edit it, your fear would try to sabotage it. So heaven covers it with silence, with confusion, with delay, with closed doors. And you think you're failing, but you're actually passing, because only those who keep walking in the dark receive the light no one else ever touches. And you are still walking. I need you to breathe, to stop judging your journey by what you feel, and start trusting it by what you've already overcome. Because most people fail here, right at the gate, not because they're weak, but because they thought the silence meant stop, when it actually meant go deeper. Comment below if this is where you are. I'm at the threshold, and I'm not turning back. Say it out loud, even if your voice shakes, because what's waiting for you now is weight. Holy weight, not of burden, of glory, of purpose, of people who are going to be unlocked through your story, through your pain, through your surrender, through your yes when no one clapped, through your obedience when no one understood, because God is about to do something through you that cannot be undone. Not by critics, not by demons, not by delay, and not even by you. But first he will strip you one last time. Yes, one more breaking, one more release, one more surrender. And it won't come from a sermon. It will come in the stillness of your soul. When he whispers the final phrase that undoes everything, will you still say yes, even if I don't give it to you right away? And that's the test. The final one. The gate before the mantle. The surrender that is not about loss, but about alignment. Because true obedience is not when you agree, it's when you follow, even when you don't understand. Will you still build? If your hands bleed and no one ever calls you faithful, will you still pray? If your voice cracks in the dark and the healing takes 10 more years, will you still stay pure? If love never knocks the way you dreamed, will you still speak truth? If it costs you every room they once invited you into, will you still obey? If the platform stays hidden and your name never trends, because this is the fire that proves who you are, this is where gifted ends and trusted begins, will you still stay faithful? If the answer is not yet, because that's what separates the gifted from the trusted. The devil doesn't fear the gifted, he fears the trusted, the ones who didn't quit when they could have, the ones who stayed faithful in obscurity, the ones who chose fire over fame, surrender over success, cross over comfort. And now, after all the breaking, the bleeding, the burning, you're becoming that. Not just anointed, but trusted, because what's coming next isn't just for you. It's for the generations chained to your obedience, the people whose lives will shift because you didn't bow, the territories that will be open because you didn't run, the chains that will snap because you said yes in silence. Heaven has been watching, not how loud your prayers were, but how steady your walk remained. And now the sky is thinning, the veil is parting, the oil is moving. But listen, This is not the climax, not yet. This is the still moment before the glory falls, and in the final part, I will tell you what happens when the voice finally speaks. When heaven says now. When the gates crack open, and the mantle you forgot you were born for descends. But until then, kneel here, right here, in the silence that is no longer empty, because this is the sound of being chosen. Now kneel deeper, because this is the moment that eternity has been waiting on. Not your talent, not your title, not your timing, but your total surrender. The moment your yes becomes unshakable. The moment the last layer of fear finally burns away. The moment heaven no longer whispers prepare, but declares now. Can you feel it? The shift? It's subtle, like the stillness before the sky cracks, like the inhale before creation moves again, like the trembling in your spirit before fire falls. And it's not around you, it's within you. You're not standing in a new season, you are the new season. You are the release, you are the sound, you are the vessel. Because when you said yes in the silence, when you kept walking in the dark, when you turned down the counterfeit, when you released the comfortable, when you bled without asking for an audience, heaven marked that. And now the oil is coming, but not the kind you imagined, not the kind that glitters in public, not the one that earns applause. This oil breaks yokes. This oil opens graves. This oil costs everything, and births more than you ever knew was buried inside you. It doesn't fall on perfect plans. It falls on broken altars. And your life, yes, the bruised parts, the places you wanted to forget, the silence you thought was punishment has become that altar. This is what the devil feared all along. Not your success, not your prayers, not even your breakthroughs. He feared this moment, the moment when your pain turned into prophecy, when your obedience ignited legacy, when your yes released territory, when you stopped asking, why me? And started declaring, send me. That's when mantles descend, and it's descending now. Let me tell you something very few will ever understand. Mantles don't fall with fanfare. They fall like thunder no one hears, until you open your mouth. And when you do, every demon that ever tormented your bloodline will remember your voice. Every chain that held your family in silence will feel your words as fire. Every closed door will hear the knock of your obedience and open, because you're not speaking as you anymore. You're speaking as a vessel of heaven's authority, as a name hell can no longer erase, as a sound that breaks timelines and establishes kingdom. Now, breathe, let the oil settle, let the shaking happen, let your body feel what your spirit already knows. You're not just chosen, you've been trusted, and you've been activated. But now that you carry this, I must give you one final warning, because the devil's last play is not to destroy you, it's to distract you after the mantle falls. He waits, watches, and then whispers again, you've done enough, you can rest now, take it easy, fade back into safety. But listen to me, that's not peace, that's spiritual amnesia. You didn't go through all this to be spiritually sleepy. You were lit to set fires, you were broken to become a door. You were trusted not to shine but to pierce. And what you carry now will either stay burning or slowly smother if you return to smallness. So say this out loud, not for me but for the mantle in you. I will not shrink, I will not sit down, I will not forget who I am. Comment below, the mantle is fallen, I am marked. Say it as witness, say it as declaration, say it as warfare. Because your public assignment begins with private remembrance. This is not the end. It's the release. And before you leave this message, I leave you with this one truth. What just happened in you is not emotional, it's eternal. And when you wake tomorrow, nothing may look different on the outside, but the atmosphere around you will recognize what's resting on your shoulders. Walk in that, don't wait for permission, don't explain your shift, don't ask the world to validate what heaven already crowned, just walk. And when people ask, what happened to you? You won't need to explain. Because when a mantle falls, it speaks for itself. Now go, the warfare you endured, the voice you followed, the fire you didn't run from, has made you what you were always meant to be. Not perfect, but trusted, not famous, but marked, not done, but deployed. And the devil who chased you your whole life is now running from what's inside you. Because this wasn't just a message, this was a transfer. The mantle is yours, now move.